Hey guys, what is going on? Happy Friday to you. It's Levi Walker here, and of course, my better half, Ryan Potter, back at it again for another episode of Access Omaha. We're at 110 already, moving through these. Thanks so much for tuning in and checking us out. We got some interesting stuff to cover with you guys leading into this Memorial Weekend holiday.
America.
Yeah. We don't have a guest today, but we really wanted to kind of take a step back and talk about business, mindset, some of that, and getting into
A book
right
that actually Levi read, and he was given this book by a friend, and he's like, dude, you got to read this. And then I read it, and I was like, wow, this book is awesome. It's challenging. It makes you think a lot. And that's what we wanted to talk to you about today is we kind of got this idea of how we're going into these things. Little shout out to Joshua Metcalf, Shop Wood, Carry Water.
Shop Wood, Carry Water.
We're going to shout him out and highly recommend you guys go check it out if you haven't. But today we want to talk about, Levi, how do you become great?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people have this question. I think we get asked this question a lot in our industries, and every person that's in an industry or doing a job, right? You're probably thinking about this question a lot of the time of, how do I become great at what I do? Right? Like, how do I get there? What are the steps to take to get there? Is it even achievable for me in that place? And I would say that it's achievable in whatever it is that you do. So anyways, let's dive in. We've got like 4 things, and we'll kind of break those 4 things down for you and discuss those. But number 1, do the small things.
Do the small things.
Yeah.
So I guess when you're talking about small things, what do you mean? Like, expand on that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I think about my job. Right? So obviously I'm in real estate, and there's a lot of things that you can do, and a lot of things that I think people think about when, the thing that I think a lot of people say is like, how was your day? Oh, I was extremely busy. We always use that term like busy, right? But like busy can mean so many things. And when I say do the small things, I think you really have to basically do one of a couple things. I think the biggest thing is you need to manage your calendar and not let your calendar manage you. Right? I feel like that's been one thing for me, especially in my industry, is like with so many appointments and so many things that I can be doing. I talk a lot about don't be caught up in the whirlwind, but focus on your business. So whatever that business is, focus on that and set time aside for that. Otherwise, you're just going to be in this whirlwind of quote-unquote busyness, right? And then you never have time to focus or evaluate where you're at, right? Because you're always caught in the whirlwind, and a year goes by, and 2 years go by, and you're like, well, I wanted to progress, and I wanted to grow, and I wanted to do this. How come I didn't do that? Well, because you were always in the whirlwind. So I think that's one thing that you can do. I think the other thing, at least for me, and you can add into this a little bit, but is just being disciplined. I think that goes along with the calendar thing, as well. But just being disciplined with your time. We all have 86,400 seconds in a day.
Whoa.
Yeah. And I've heard it explained this way that, if somebody gave you $86,400 today,
how would you spend it?
Right?
Yeah.
How would you spend it? And would you spend all of it, or whatever? And if you had to spend all of it throughout that day, how would you spend it?
Wow.
And
that's a crazy way to think.
I think it's just an interesting way to think about, okay, well, I would obviously want to be disciplined in how I spend that money, right? So I would probably lay out a plan. Same thing that we need to do with our business and with the things that we're doing is, how disciplined am I? And if I'm not very disciplined, and if my calendar's all over the place, it's going to be a struggle to be successful and to take your business to the next level if you can't do the small things.
Focusing on the small things,
Is there anything that comes to mind for you,
Well,
like when you think about those things?
I parrot a lot of what you say. I think honestly the big thing is touching back to the busyness. A lot of times people are busy being busy, and there's a feeling you get when you make yourself busy doing things that, it's an artificial productivity, right? Where you feel like, because I'm all over the place and I'm multitasking and doing all these things, somehow this is going to net me some benefit or some gain. But there's a million studies and articles talking about super producers and successful billionaires and things, and people who really focus in on 1 to 2, 3 tasks at a time at most, and really being proficient in what those are before they move on to something else. The people who are scattered 5, 7, 10 different tasks at a time rarely get any of them done, and the ones that they do get done are with little success or sloppily put together. So focusing on the little things, whether that's, hey, maybe I just wake up at a certain time every single day. Maybe I start my day with coffee. Maybe I start my day with a meditation.
Yep.
I get to the office at this time. Whatever that looks like for your day, everybody's day is a little bit different, but just little tiny things like that. What I think, we talk about quite a bit is it's how so interesting it is that these little tiny ripples, little small things that you do consistently really create really big waves once they get to shore. And it's interesting to see those things come to fruition and go, whoa, I was working on that 2 years ago, and now here I stand in that thing that I wanted to do, right?
Yep.
So, definitely.
Yeah, and I think that goes into kind of number 2.
Yeah.
Which is, Levi?
Understand and know where you're going. And I think this one's very important because direction is super important. Everybody talks about having a why, right? Or what's your goal, 5-year, 10-year, whatever that looks like. But if you just understand or you have a vision for yourself on what you're trying to achieve, become, or do, I think even just that mental clarity helps you kind of put yourself in a position to fulfill that essentially, or to become that, or step into that lifestyle, right? So I think that having the understanding of, hey, I'm here now and I'm not the best that I can be, but I want to get to this place over here, and then circling back to number 1, wrapping in some of these small little consistencies to ultimately get to this place that you want to be.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I think it's very important to have a plan and know what that plan is, and maybe more so into how that creates into the vision.
Yeah.
And always knowing what your vision is, right? Like we had a meeting here with our team like this last week, and we were sitting down at that meeting, and it's like, okay, what's our goal for before the next meeting? And I was like, why don't we all try to go get at least 2 listings?
Wow.
And like we challenged each other. We held each other accountable to be like, all right, let's go get 2 listings before the next meeting. So that's 6 listings between the 3 of us that were in that meeting. And I'm like, let's go do it.
Yeah.
And that's, again, having a clear vision and a plan of like, okay, we got to go get 6 listings. What's our plan and what's the vision to get there?
Yeah.
And then holding each other accountable. But then also, I think, moving to that last point on this is basically be willing to put in the time.
Right.
Like I think a lot of people, unfortunately, just like we talk about this all the time, beginning of the year, like I have my New Year's resolution, right? And they create this plan and they got this vision of where they're going, and then they get two months into it, maybe even less than that, and it all falls apart. Well, why does it fall apart?
Right.
A lot of times I think people, again, get too busy, or they lose sight of what that vision and that plan was, or they don't want to put in the time to get there anymore, right? Like, it sounded fun at the beginning, and then they're like, man, this is way too much work, or this is, my body hurts, or I'm too tired, or I don't want to sacrifice this, and it's like, well, you got to be willing to do something,
right,
to get there.
And I think that what you just said is so true. I think for a lot of people, the whole giving up the resolutions and the things that they struggle with, a lot of folks, you guys probably can relate Oftentimes we find ourselves slipping or getting caught up in the mainstream of the day and day that pretty soon you're like, oh my gosh, I already fell off my goal, or I was doing this, how did that happen? And you try to look back and you can't really figure out exactly what that thing was. And because a lot of times it comes from not just one thing, but many little things. Again, circling back around to point number one, concentrate on the little things because those do have a greater effect down the road. My dad told me a long time ago when I was a kid, and this is a pretty common saying and phrase, but at the time, of course, when I was a child, it's the first time I'd ever heard it, and he said, I was struggling with something, doing a chore or something at home, and he said, you know what, how do you eat an elephant? And I was like, what? He's like, how do you eat an elephant? I'm like, I have no idea. Like, what are you talking about, Dad? And he said, one bite at a time. That's how you eat an elephant, because it's this big, daunting task, but eventually you will get there if you start to take small bites. And it's, kind of a corny saying, but it really rings true, I think, for especially some of the stuff that we're talking about.
Yeah, and again, look at you just roll with this. It moves into point number 3, which is trust the process.
Trust the process.
And I can't tell you how many conversations I have with people about this, and you and I have even been talking about this, that, I think a lot of people want to get this vision and this plan inside, and they want to get there overnight.
Instant gratification.
And yeah, it's the world we live in, and somebody gets into it, 5 days, 6 days, 2 months, 5 months, 6 months, a year.
Yeah.
It's not working out,
right?
And they give up, right? And they don't understand that in order to get to where they need to be or where they're going, that it's going to be a process, right?
It takes time.
And I think a lot of times, we've talked about this numerous times, like how many people gave up maybe 3 months, 6 months, a year prior to peaking out and hitting something big and being super successful because they didn't think it was working.
Or they were frustrated with the process and just threw their hands up in the air and wanted to give up.
Yeah.
I think it's so true. I mean, any industry you're in, even if you got your dream job, I don't care what that is, at some point you've been stressed and questioned what you do, right? Everybody does. You get to a point where you're like, oh my gosh, this is dealing with all these challenges. Is this really what I want to do for the rest of my life, right? And you think about that, and then you have to do that self-reflection and go, okay, no, I'm going to push forward, I'm going to move forward, and I'm going to accomplish this goal, and it's going to take me to that place that I want to be. And it doesn't, to your point, it does not happen overnight. There's nothing that was worth gaining that was easy to get. And I truly believe that.
Yeah.
Whatever your job is or your thing in life that you do, it takes work, and there's no get-rich-quick scheme.
Yep.
If that's a goal for anyone, nothing happens overnight. You have to put in the work, and you got to hone your craft, and you'll reap the rewards and the benefits. It just takes time to get there. So trust the process.
Yeah, and I think with that process too, is there's a process that happens within you.
Yeah.
Right? It's not just the process that goes along with what you're trying to do to accomplish that vision or that goal or growth in your business, right? But there's also this process, I think, that happens within us, that the longer we continue to do it, the better we get at it.
Exactly.
Right? So you develop confidence, and you get more and more confident, and you develop experience, and you gain more and more experience, which then happens to help gain more knowledge.
Yes.
You go through a different situation that you've never been through before, and it may be difficult and it may be rough,
right?
But now you've been through it, and I'm a firm believer in this, and was sitting down with some buyers even today where I said, there's not a transaction that I've gone through now that I haven't gone through before.
Right.
I've literally feel like I've gone through everything, but I wouldn't have been able to do that if I wouldn't have been putting in the time.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have gone through those tough, difficult situations, those challenges, those things that at times made me want to pull my hair out and be like, is this something I really want to continue to keep doing? But then you get through it and you're like, wow, I learned so much from that. And I always ask my students and other agents on my team, and when they get done going through a challenge, right, I say, what'd you learn from it?
Yeah.
What are you going to do differently next time?
Right.
Or how can you present that differently? Or how can you educate your client differently? Or whatever it is, but looking at those challenges and those things that we've gone through and be like,
what was the takeaway?
Okay, what did I learn? What did I take away from this? Like, and it may not always been a challenge. It may be a high or a low, or like, wow, that went really smooth. What did I do well that caused that to be a smooth transaction, or that relationship to grow deeper, or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's important to do to assess that, moving forward.
Yeah, because you do. I think you get an idea of the person that you want to become or where you want to be, and you guys, it's Ryan and I are living proof that just a lot of little things and a lot of hard work, and eventually you're just gonna wake up one day and go, whoa, I'm living that thing that I always wanted to live, or I always wanted to do, and it just shows up. I don't know where I heard it. It might even be this book, which is phenomenal, guys. If you haven't read this book, it's such a light read. I mean, we're talking barely over 100 pages, 120 pages. I read this on a flight. It's called Chop Wood, Carry Water. It's by Joshua Metcalf. Kind of a personal development book, but it has a ton of really cool little tidbits in here. I may have actually even gotten it out of this book. There's so many cool little nuggets in here. Mm-hmm. But the thing that I heard was, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, because I don't know exactly, but something along the lines of, the universe will never present a challenge that you don't have the power to overcome. So there's never going to be something that's put in your path that you can't win over or succeed or move through that challenge. And I think for me that was really powerful to hear, because when you start having belief in yourself, putting in the work, doing the little things, trusting in the process, everything kind of, the universe just gets out of your way. Everything kind of just happens, right? And it's a cool feeling, I think.
Yeah. That's good stuff, because I mean, I'm the same. I think there's so many things in that book that I just took away, and honestly that I've made it an effort to like go back and read it. It's going to be a daily thing for me. Like I'm going to read, because literally like one of the chapters is like 3 pages. Yeah. Exactly. And there's like 33 chapters. Yeah. So I'm like, I'm just going to read 1 or 2 a day, and just constantly be reminded of some of these small things and implement that in my life, in my business, those types of things. And again, Chop Wood, Carry Water. So he's basically, I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but it's talking about, in order to get to where you want to go, you've got to do the small things. And if you do the small things and you do these things, they're going to help you become great and help you get to that ultimate goal of what that is that you're trying to do. The last thing that I kind of want to talk about, number 4, surround yourself with like-minded people.
Very important.
I think just in the last like 2 or 3 years, as I evaluate like my business, and I evaluate the growth, and I evaluate how I've grown personally, I can't sit back and say that I wouldn't have been where I'm at today if it weren't for the people that helped me get there.
True.
Whether that's my broker at my company, Vince Lisi, or that's other people that are within the business that have taken the time to help me, or my coach, or even Levi, doing business with this guy and doing life. I mean, I think I told Levi like 4 or 5 times today that I love him.
True, this is true.
And he's like, I love you too. But I really like, there's just like those people that if they left, they would leave like that hole in your heart of like, gosh, what am I going to do without that person in my life right now? Because they challenge you, they hold you accountable, they help you believe in yourself, they build confidence in you. All those types of people, as you think about, okay, how did I get to where I'm at? Right. I didn't get here. Yes, I put in the time, I put in the work, but I didn't get here without people opening up, their experiences and their knowledge and their direction and their help on certain things to help me get to where I'm going. And I think we always hear it, but it's like, remember where you came from. Remember who helped you get there.
Exactly.
And I think that's true in just our lives. And even in our businesses as we go forth and we do things, that it's always good to like you know, and something I've thought about is like, man, I need to be better at like sending thank yous to people just throughout my life, as far as like, hey, remember that time? Thanks for that.
Thanks for doing that.
Thanks for helping me
People
get there.
who touch you or just take you to that next level. I totally agree. And I think there, you know, there's this saying like, you're the sum total of your 5 closest friends. People hear that and stuff. And I think that makes a lot of people think about it in a different light. Like, oh, my friend's doing this, and maybe they're not that type of person, or this type of person, or maybe they're in a place that I don't want to be, so I need to get a new friend group or leave that friend or something like that. And I really kind of disagree with that. I think to get back to what you're saying about remember where you came from, you are made up by a lot of the soul influencers you have around you. And surrounding yourself with good people doesn't mean that you have to ditch or abandon your current friend group.
Yeah.
What that means is, whatever you're trying to achieve or whatever you're trying to do, find somebody who's doing what you're doing and doing it better.
Yeah.
And reach out to them and say, hey, I want to meet. I want to grab a cup of coffee. I see you're doing this thing. It's really awesome, and I admire that, and I just want to pick your brain a little bit. Guaranteed they're going to make time for you. And if they don't, move on. Find somebody else who's doing the same thing. And I feel like more often than not, people will be in the situation where they want to help you because, again, those types of people are going to be able to self-reflect and know that there were also people who helped support them in their journey, which will make them want to reciprocate and support you in your journey. It's a powerful thing.
Amen to that. So I'm gonna give a little shout out to some people.
Okay.
JD Herb, shout out to you. Thank you for helping me get to where I am, because I wouldn't be where I'm at if it weren't for you. Levi Walker.
This guy, he's too nice.
Shout out to you. I do truly love you.
Yeah.
And thank you for helping me get to where, man, I really enjoy, like, there's very few people in our lives, I think, that like really challenge us on like a personal level. Like, not just the time that Levi and I get together is almost, I don't even have a word for it, but I feel like we're always going deeper in conversation as far as like not just business, but just like, hey, how's your relationship with Rachel? Hey, how's your relationship with Vanessa? Like, we're talking about our family and our relationships, and like, hey, did you go on vacation?
What
like,
are your challenges?
tell me about it. Like, and then it's the other stuff. Like,
what are some challenges you've been facing this week? Like, what are, things you need help with improving or whatever? Yeah, no, I'm 100%.
Yep. People don't come along and have that instant connection very much in your lives, and if they do, you want to hang on to them. So Levi Walker, I love you.
I love you too, buddy.
But do you have any shout outs that you want to give?
I do. I didn't think we were going to do this.
Yeah.
I'm so nervous.
Hey,
no. I got a lot. I mean, mortgage is a crazy industry, and there's so much information that goes into that industry that I feel like it takes years to really just hone your craft and be good at what you do. So, of course, I got a laundry list of folks. Kevin Hall, for sure. If you ever watch these podcasts, my man, that's one of my original OG mentors. Eric Sandstrom, my really good buddy, is a top producing mortgage lender in San Diego. There's so many. Lori Farhat, awesome processor I worked with in the past. Anthony Eden, Cindy Flores. There's so many good people.
Yeah.
Everybody here at Core now, these guys are fantastic. Just really have helped me take my business to the next level. So there's always good people, and I'm sure, who else? Eric Attalano, Alba Bayo, Thurman.
Getting after
it. Tons of cool people, man. But yeah, there's probably too many more that I need to mention.
Obvious those people we love.
Yeah.
Like our loved ones.
Uh-huh.
Shout out to you. You know who you are. I think it's good to just acknowledge and be grateful and humble enough to say, like, listen, these people played an influence in my life.
Yeah.
And think about it, like, how many times do we get the opportunity, or does somebody tell you, like, hey, thanks for what you did to get me where I'm at. Like, I think we're caught up in so much of a world that it's so focused on me, and so focused on, like, where I want to go, what I want to become, and it's like, whoa, take a step back. Like, let's think about who helped you get there. you know, and like let's thank them for that, and let's thank
Right.
those people and really acknowledge them. So yeah, I mean it feels good too.
It does.
Like
it does.
They always say like it's better to give than it is
than
to receive.
It
And I
does.
truly believe that.
There's
Like,
a satisfaction to giving positive energy to other people and knowing that it affects them in a positive way. And definitely, I mean, we have crazy months here at the office or whatever where everybody's just kind of buried in work, and you got to be laser focused to make sure that you don't slip up and that we're getting everything done on time for folks. So even sometimes, I'll call my processor and, hey, you hungry? I'll pick you up lunch, or bring them in, fill the candy bowl, stuff like that. Like little things just to make people feel that they're valued. I feel like goes a long way for a lot of folks, especially when you get wrapped in the whirlwind of business, because we all do, you know, and then you have to kind of step back and go, okay, wait a minute, these things are important too. So I need to focus in on them.
Absolutely. Good stuff.
Definitely, man.
Dude, I like doing this.
Me too. I feel like, guys, I want to plug the book one more time.
Yeah.
I am not a huge reader. If you know me personally, you know this. I'd rather listen to an audiobook all day, watch a video, or listen to a podcast. Those things I do a ton of, but reading is not for me most of the time. But you know what? I had time to kill on a plane. My phone was dead, and I think it was fortuitous because I picked up this book out of my backpack. And it was the first chapter, I was hooked. And I literally couldn't put it down. At one point, the seatbelt light went on, and they were like, oh, we're getting ready to land. And I'm like, oh, man, I got to hurry up and finish this thing. And that's how good it was. And right when I got off the plane, I was like, dude, we talked, I think. It was like an hour or two later. And I was like, dude, you've got to read this book. It's awesome. So Chop Wood or Carry Water, Joshua Metcalf. He's got a ton of books, guys. I haven't read any of the other ones. I think,
I'm excited. Yeah, I've ordered some. They're coming. And there's actually another one that he just wrote that was kind of along the same like storyline of this as Chop Wood, Carry Water, because I love just how it flowed. Yeah. And he's like, if you like that book, you're going to have to check out this book that just released. And so I'm excited. I got my hands on that one, so we'll probably bring that back on the podcast at some point too.
I like it. So in a way, guys, today kind of Joshua Metcalf was our guest.
Shout out Joshua Metcalf. You were on our podcast without being able to answer our questions. Yeah. But maybe someday we'll get Joshua here. Who knows? Shout out Joshua Metcalf. Which, by the way, he did respond to me on Instagram.
No doubt.
Shot him up some stuff, and I was like, hey, I'd like to order a bunch of your books in bulk. He's like, dude, here's my assistant, connect with her, blah, blah, blah. And it was awesome. I was like, sweet, thanks, Joshua.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing, too, real quick, is this is actually kind of a hard book to find, right?
Yeah.
Like, to buy in bulk. Yeah. And it's actually kind of costly, guys. I'm definitely worth it, but how much was this, like $20 for paperback?
Yeah, it was.
But great book. Awesome, definitely worth it. It's something you'll read and want to reread and then give to a friend so they can read, which is what we did.
Yeah. It's sold out like everywhere, like Barnes and Noble, Amazon, like all these places that I was looking. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna hit Metcalf up,
right?
And he hooked me up.
That's what's up.
Hey, maybe we should get one of the books away. You never know.
Actually,
I might just do that.
We should. I mean, you said it now. You can't take it back.
I know. I can't take it back. So we'll share with you guys how you could potentially get that book for free, and then I'll send you a copy of it. So boom, shout out right there.
Awesome, guys.
So anyways,
happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Hey,
have a great Memorial weekend, you guys. The weather's not supposed to be super nice, but hopefully you spend some time relaxing, hanging out with family, being safe, enjoying the holiday.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and hopefully Nebraska will give us some love on the weather next week. Come on.
Yeah, they're giving us some love in baseball right now. Shout out Huskers.
Yeah, 10-1.
Go Big Red.
Did we close at 10-1 or 11-1?
Yeah, 10-1. That's too bad, Iowa. I'm sorry. Not really.
All right, guys. Thanks so much. Appreciate you tuning in. Let us know if you have any questions. And as always, connect with us and continue to watch our stuff.
That's right.
Thanks for your support.
See you guys.
Peace. Ooh, hey,